Uh, hey there, everybody. This is Mac and Tiwa. It's September, late September. You know what that means? It's time for the Secondary School Ed Reform Google Hang. We're going to have a better title for that someday. But if you've joined us in the past, this is the time we bring our alumni network together to work on a fellow alum's dilemma. So not only do you get introduced to a really cool protocol on how to peer coach someone, you get to practice it for good. You get to help someone. So that's what we're doing in real time, demonstrating the many ways our network could come together, and many thanks to those that are watching, and thanks to those that are joining us on the call. Let's get to who's in the Google Hang. First of all, I like to go with our host with the most. Just give us a brief hello, where you're calling in from, and just quick hello, what's going on? Dan Condon. Yeah, Dan, time for the Secretary of
Hey, Matt.
This is how we bring our alumni network together.
Do you have control over the volume?
I'm working on it right now.
Yeah.
I'm muting everyone but you. I'm muting everyone but you right now. Hold on. Muting. That's what we're doing real time. All right.
All right. Awesome. I love that control room. I know what you're going through, my brother. So, hey, what's up? I'm Dan Condon. I am the Associate Director of Professional Development out here in Estes Park, Colorado at the Professional Development Center at Eagle Rock. I'm also a Public Allies alum from a couple decades ago.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dan, for that. We're going to go around. We'll actually have our guest dilemma provider. He'll go last, and we'll actually briefly segue into it from there. So we'll save him for last. So I want to bring in here Sandy. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
All right. All right. Awesome. I love that control.
All right, Sandy, you there? Or maybe she said she was in the library. So maybe she's muted herself. If not, but we see you there, Sandy. So we'll try that. Sandy, you there?
So, Mac, I think I'm hearing what I said a few minutes ago.
Okay. So there's a bit of a lag. Cool. Actually, let's go over to Javier. Let's give this a whirl. Javier.
Hey, what's up, Mac? I'm here.
Awesome. Quick introduction.
All right.
Who are you? Where are you calling in from?
Yeah, so, quick, as you're asking me to click something. Sorry, my fault. Yeah, so my name's Javier. I'm here at PANO, National Office, new recruit, September call-up to the national team here at Public Allies. Really excited to be here. I'm the training manager and national site consultant.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Javier. And also a big baseball fan, hence the September call-up reference. Thanks for joining us, Javier.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see here. Awesome, great. Let's go over to one of our, sounds like we've got a little bit of lag on it, so I'm going to close the event page. Maybe that's causing some sound issues that for some of you at home who are on the event page, you might want to take that off. That helps prevent the lag. Thanks for that tip. Let's see if Kelsey, let's try your mic. Maybe, how's that working?
National team here at Public Allies. Really excited to be here.
So I'm hearing to try my mic. Can you hear me?
You're good. Are you on the event page, or are you on the? Are you in the Hangouts room? I'm gonna unmute you.
Yeah, that was totally the trick.
That was it. So I'm gonna close the event page. Maybe that's causing some sound issues. So Kelsey, real quick. I know this is riveting television for those that are just tuning in. Kelsey, real quick, if you could just turn off your event page, but keep this window open for Google Hangouts. I think you'll be good to go. I think you'll be good to go, because I think that's going to lag.
All right. I did it.
Yeah.
It's doing much better. Much better.
So, how you doing? We hear you.
Now this is better. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Go for it. Quick intro.
So my name is Kelsey Bond. I am the Professional Development Fellow here at the Eagle Rock School Professional Development Center. As serving as the Public Allies Fellow, working alongside one Mr. Dan Condon.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Kelsey. Great to have some allies, hashtag allies15 on the call. Even though it's a PA alum jam, always love to have our alumni in process on. Thanks for making it, Kelsey. Awesome. Let's go. I love that we have more than enough people on this call. We got to go around the horn. Let's see. Sandy, we're going to give you one more try. Sandy, you there? What you got?
Hello.
Hey, Sandy, you can hear you. What's going on?
Hi, yeah. My name is Sandy Toss. I'm a Public Allies 2012, class 2012 from Delaware, and I'm currently studying at Penn.
Awesome. And you're also interested in ed reform yourself?
Yeah, I'm more interested in higher education, but obviously that is all tied together.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Always first-time caller. Thanks for joining us here on the party line. This is exciting. I'm trying to continue my enthusiasm for having more than 4 people on the call. It's amazing. Finally, we're going to go to before we go to introduce our guest of honor, Dan, can you just briefly give us the overview of how we're going to spend the next 45 minutes together?
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to be using a school reform initiative protocol. There are about 200 of these peer coaching, group coaching protocols in existence. We're using something called the consultancy protocol. And the awesome thing with protocols is it doesn't lend well for folks who just want to give someone the answer. So we're going to go through a process in which we're going to help Mike think more deeply about the dilemma that we're going to hear about in a minute. And what I'll do in the group chat is let folks know where we're at, but all you got to do is pay attention to it's kind of like Simon Says. And then we're in less than 45 minutes. Hopefully Mike's going to be a little further along with solving this dilemma than he is right now.
Awesome. So what's been great is we get to now actually meet our guest of honor. He's been with us on the calls before, and it's kind of neat because when you come to the call, the torch gets passed to you. You kind of have to be on. So Mike, you're up. Quick introduction about yourself, and go right into your dilemma.
Right on. What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me, Mac. My name is Mike Dunn, and I'm a Public Allies alum from 2009 at Eagle Rock. I currently live in Philadelphia, and I teach at a private school just outside the city. I teach 10th grade history, but I also do college counseling and do curriculum development.
Awesome. Welcome aboard. Great to have you back. You're active in the virtual alumni sphere, so thanks for continuing that. Mike,
no problem.
Give us a dilemma. Let's get us going, and then Dan will take us through.
Cool. So I'm going to try and frame my dilemma the best that I can, and hopefully I'll give you enough background information, and then Dan will coach us through the protocol, and we'll see where we get. So one of my responsibilities at my school is to facilitate a blended learning environment. For those folks that are not familiar with blended learning, I design a course in an online module. At our school, we use a module called Canvas. If you're familiar with Blackboard, it's something like that. And students then log into Canvas whenever they want, but they have 2 specific sessions at my school that are in length, and those happen at different times during the week. And then instead of it just being an online course in which they would do everything that they need for the course just using a computer, I blend with them my instruction 1 day a week for about 40 minutes or so. So that's kind of a little bit about what's happening right with my students. My dilemma here is that as a new instructor to the blended environment, it's been challenging for me to use assessment really well to make my course nimble enough to react to my students' understanding and grades that they receive on regular assessments. So when I'm normally instructing in a classroom, I'm able to use the formative assessments of students being right in front of me to help drive my curricular choices and drive my assessment choices. But in a blended environment, I only see them for maybe 40 minutes a week. So I guess my dilemma is, and my point to the group is, I'm wondering how you guys think I might be able to leverage maybe different types of assessments or different ways of including content in my blended environment or my online environment to be more to meet my students' needs a little bit better.
All right, I'm about to throw that question up for you.
Great. And so Mike has given us the dilemma. Dan,
All right.
is about to set us up for the first round.
Yeah, so this first round is simply clarifying questions. Those are usually answered with brief factual answers, such as how many students are in each class? How many students are we talking about? So we will get into probing questions that will help Mike think more deeply later. But for the next few minutes, we're going to ask questions that we have that will help us better understand the dilemma that Mike put out there.
Awesome. So I got everyone's microphones on, so you should be able to just type up and offer a question for Mike, and then I'll put the camera on you so that we can see you. So, questions for clarity.
My first question in regards to what you laid out there, Mike, was you spoke about the assessments that you need to do for the class. Kind of in I guess comparing your experience versus maybe what's required of you. Like, what is your expectation for how many assessments you have to do of the students?
Good question, Javier. I think I don't really have an expectation for assessments in terms of number. I guess as many as possible to gather as much data as possible might be the answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How many students are we talking about, Mike?
36 total students, and the blended chunks are broken up into, I think, a group of 12, a group of 8, and a group of whatever's left over, 16.
That was good math. Okay.
Mike, could you describe to me the amount of history you have with these students? For example, is this the first time you've ever worked with these students, or are some of these returners?
Yep, all these students are freshmen, and I am a high school teacher, so I'll have never taught any of them before. That being said, our school is very small. By very small, I mean we have 270 or so students, grades 1 through 12. So 36 students is the entire freshman class. So I know these students kind of informally from when they were students in our middle school.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Maybe similarly to Mac's question, is this their first blended learning experience?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So just for clarity, to reframe what you were saying about the blended learning experience. So you meet with them, you said, about once a week, is that right? And then the other inputs that you kind of have in contacts with them happen via what medium?
Yeah, so my blended time, right, which is the time that I'm seeing them face-to-face, is about 40 minutes a week. And
Okay.
my non-blended time, which is their online time, that happens in 2 sessions for about an hour and a half total, so 2 45-minute sessions. And that happens via a tool called Canvas, which is really similar to Blackboard or similar to any sort of like web curation device. They take all of their quizzes and other assessments within Canvas. It sort of is like a log-on version of a website, right? There you go. Does that answer your question, Javier?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Go.
Yeah, this is Mac, Mike. So I have to admit, like, part of my challenge is trying to remove my own learning experiences with this one,
Right.
and trying not to see this as weird. So I just want to be transparent, like, oh, this is weird. You know, because there's like a lot of my bias. You know, I'm trying to understand more. So that actually, of course, me ask this question. You know, when they're in that, when they're not with you in person. I hear they take quizzes on this website, and are there other like multimedia lessons that are provided? For example, is it like, do they watch videos on it, or is it strictly like reading articles and different texts? Could you just describe more deeply what the Canvas is like, versus what it's like when they're with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can also speak to one more thing that might alleviate your own, you know, ideas of insanity, right? So
not in a bad way. Weird. I'm just trying to get a context, like a graph.
Yeah. All right. So one of our goals for this course, this probably doesn't exactly speak to your question, but one of our goals for the course is to introduce students to a blended learning environment, because it is 100% likely that they will encounter that sometime later in their educational career, whether it's at our school or college or wherever they end up going, right? So then to go back to your question about the medium is whatever I make it. There's no sort of like pre-curated stuff where I'm not using a set curriculum. I'm making it as we go, and so it's very multimedia. There are images, there's little videos, there's videos I make myself, there's other longer videos, there's infographics, there are then there's just like straight articles, right? And then there's more challenging texts as well. So it's a wide variety of learning media.
Great, and that helped me clarify, because there's a bit of a meta process, right? Not only is they're learning the content, but they're also learning in the style, which is like an introduction as they're freshmen.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually called introductory freshman seminar. So yeah, the entire experience is meant to introduce them to like more independent high school learning, but also to a blended style of learning.
Got it.
Any other clarifying questions?
Can I just ask what? So I think I have a good conception of all of the background, but I'd like you to restate the dilemma itself, like what you're trying to find again, just so because I think now I understand, and I want to hear you say it again. So I think so that I'm right in my thinking.
Check. Okay. So I have my students only for 40 minutes face to face each week, and I'm wondering how I can use the time and assessments that I have to maximize the efficacy of my teaching, right? So that means both in person and online, because my teaching's happening sort of in both venues.
Right.
Do you find yourself using a lot of your face-to-face time to review assignments that are going on online, or is it new content that you're doing face-to-face?
Can you restate? I think I missed the first part of your question, Kelsey.
So during your seminar face-to-face time, are you doing new content, or is it a lot of reviewing the assignments and quizzes that they are doing on their own time?
So almost entirely review, discussion, and unpacking old concepts and not introducing new concepts.
And then is there any other teacher or class at your school that does a similar outline, or is this the first one?
Yeah, so everybody in our high school takes one blended learning course a day. So we have honors English at our school, and that is also blended, and then everybody who's not in honors English is taking one of another course, and then all the freshmen are taking my course.
All right, we are going to move on to probing questions. So these questions may be tough for folks if you're unfamiliar with protocols, but kind of the main purpose of probing questions is to help Mike clarify and expand his own thinking about his dilemma. So if you can elicit a response from Mike that has him scratching his head or thinking or expressing, I've never thought of that before, those are great probing questions. So they should not be pieces of advice couched in a question. And so we'll just kick off with it that way. So what probing questions do folks have?
Yeah, we should also have a mock prize for the first person who asks any advice that's laden within a question, because I will win that prize every time.
We are conditioned. Yeah, we are conditioned to do that. So I also, in the group chat, I'm putting those where we are now guides for folks.
Great. So probing questions are welcome now. Mike, I have a probing question. I'm ready to win the prize.
Hit me, Mac. I'm ready.
In what way are the is there I'm curious about your assessment of the learning styles of the freshmen as they come into it. And so I guess my probing question is, do you get an assessment of how they learn best? Or, for example, do you get an assessment like, I love YouTube videos versus I love posting Instagram? Or, you know what I mean? Like, do you get access to any of that? Or does that help inform how you do? God, that sounds like advice. Sorry, Dan. Can you rephrase my question so it's proper? Or did I get it right?
Maybe a probing question would be, Mike, what assumptions are you making about how students prefer to learn?
Yeah, what he said.
I think my assumptions are that I don't know how students prefer to learn. And so therefore, I'm assuming that I'm going, let me think how to phrase this best. I'm assuming that the more ways that I can incorporate different mediums into the blended environment, the better off I'm going to be. Isn't included under the requirements for having a register on it shouldn't. Sorry, I'm hearing feedback. Is anybody else?
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
Let me double check. Maybe I have it running somewhere. I don't think I have it running anywhere.
There's people talking near me. I can.
Oh, got it.
You might need to unmute, or might need to mute me if I'm not talking.
Okay, you got it. So, I don't know what just hit up in the chat when you're ready to speak.
Beautiful.
Do you want me to re-answer the question, Mac?
No, I think what I heard you says you really don't know what they're coming in. You don't have an assessment of how they best want to learn.
And I think a more challenging bit of that is that they're freshmen, and so designing an assessment for me would be challenging. But I think that's something that I hadn't thought about. So thanks.
Sure.
I wonder how well, I'm going to stick a clarifying question here, but how many blended interactions have you had yet this school year?
Oh yeah, like 1.5, I think.
Okay. So so you're in the midst of this dilemma. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe my question is there something, are there indicators from your current students that something's working very well with them well, I'll just ask it that way. What is working very well with the students that you feel like this process is resonating with?
Right. So one thing that is working really well is that students are very independent so far in their kind of taking on the tasks of the. So that's pretty awesome, and that might have been unexpected, right? I wasn't sure how freshmen were going to do taking on the rigors of a course that is almost entirely like individually driven, you know. So there's that going on, and I guess the other indicator for me is on their assessments so far. They've had, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 quizzes for the course so far. They're sort of all over the board, right? So the students whose profiles that I know are more academically inclined students, those students are scoring, you know, sometimes lower than I thought that they would score so far in the quizzes, and some of the students that are less academically inclined are scoring higher on the quizzes, and then that also like flip-flops on other quizzes. So, and I'm challenged to figure out a correlation so far with only, you know, 7 or so quizzes about, you know, which content is better for which kid, and, you know, so there you go.
Hey, this is Mac. Mike, I hear quizzes is a feedback loop. And I see Javier's got a question, so I'll pass it off to him after I ask this one. So there's a feedback loop on quizzes, and I'm wondering, are there other feedback loops that are embedded within this process? And some might be feedback loops such as comments after videos that you post, perhaps, or even the number of hits, perhaps, maybe on, you know, if you can see if they're actually looking at an article. I'm just sort of wondering, are there other, because it sounds like you're using the quizzes as a task, a little test of it, but I was sort of wondering, are you noticing if any medium are being used or reacted to more than other medium that you have?
Yeah, so the analytics in Canvas are pretty impressive, and you can see how many times students have viewed pages, how long they spent on specific pages, how many times they viewed embedded videos or clicked on embedded videos. So that's good. The feedback loop for, or the loop that is based on feedback on content, though, has not existed yet.
Okay.
So. There is also other assessments in the course aside from quizzes that we haven't gotten to yet, and those are discussion boards, and those will come a little bit later. So I don't have an experience with those yet to be able to bring to this chat.
I'm going to pass over to Javier.
Yeah, okay. Hey, Mike, I think, so my question is, it seems like you're in the kind of process of discovery with this whole thing. And my question is, are you looking at it as a process of experimentation, where you're kind of measuring each of the different delivery methods that you're giving out to the students, or is it kind of you're just kind of playing it by how you feel and what you're perceiving as it comes to you?
I think the former to your question, Javier, is that I'm looking at the data closely to try to plan my next move in the course more effectively, right? And whether that means next quarter or that means next year, the idea is that I want to use my student data to kind of inform what works best and what doesn't work best.
So quick. Oh yeah, cool. Sorry, did you have some more?
No, follow-up, Javi.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, my quick follow-up was then, are you then kind of casting a wide net in terms of the methodology you're using right now, with the understanding that you're trying to catch as much data as possible, or do you feel like you kind of just have a couple things that you're trying out first?
So far, there's two primary methods of data collection in terms of discussion boards and quizzes, and the other analytics of the course that I'm collecting data from. But the idea would be that later, those will sort of started off as those being my 3 major data points, right? And then later, I hope to incorporate more information, or so more data collecting points based on what I think students will respond to, or, you know, who knows? I haven't decided how that's going to go yet.
Awesome. Kelsey.
Yes. So my question is definitely coming from a lens of being a student who has used Blackboard in a class. So is there a forum that you have that you could track the questions that students are asking each other, or Like, is there a medium that they go saying, hey, I'm struggling with this part of the assignment, or trying to break down this specific part of a video, right? So is there a way that you're able to see the conversations occurring between the students?
Yes, partly. So the answer, I think the best answer is that while they're engaged in online learning at school, there is a online learning supervisor, right? And so I'm getting feedback from them pretty frequently about the questions that students are having for that person while they're supervising them. But there is no online forum for collecting that kind of information.
Cool.
All right, I'm gonna crack with the last question, and then we're gonna move into a discussion where Mike will benefit from our discussion, but we'll be talking with each other and refer to him in third person, which is kind of creepy, but that's the way it's gonna go. So my question, Mike, is when you think about, how do you think about your expectations of or for your students, and how that influences how you're moving forward with this dilemma?
Right now, I don't have a ton of expectations for students, only because, number one, I know that I'm new to this and I don't want to impose too many expectations yet. Two, I know that they're new to this and are also freshmen, and I know that's a tough place to be in life. And and three, I think that blended learning as a platform in their future education is, still questionable about whether it's best for them or not, I guess. And so, but that's like a whole other kind of issue.
Awesome. So we're gonna, Mike's gonna pretend, we're gonna pretend like he's a fly on the wall. We're gonna talk with each other about the dilemma and what we've heard from him in the last 15 or 20 minutes. And so we're gonna try to define the issues a little more thoroughly and objectively. We can, put some suggestions into play here, simply as open suggestions. But let's try to suss out what's going on here. What do folks think? And I just posted, here we are now, number 4. So that's where we're at. We're just going to have a chat with each other.
So I'm going to chime in first, because then I get to get all the points that everybody else is thinking, so I can get out of the way and let you guys do all the heavy lifting with the real insight. So as I'm hearing it, it's almost, you got two sides there, almost like new to this, if you will. Mike's new to having this blended format, and then he's got a whole bunch of students that are new to this blended format too. And then I'm also hearing that we don't have a sense of how these students have done in previous blended formats. So we got no data there, we got no intel there, and also we don't have any intel on Mike's past experience in running blended stuff. So there's a lot of, it's not an Overton window, it's like an Overton atrium, right? It's so dark, like, there's so many unknowns outside of what the scores are happening. And so I just wanted to say that out loud, because, man, I can imagine that's a tough place to be if you want to maximize the time together. I also hear that he's willing to let go, saying, in his first time, we're still figuring out, he doesn't have high expectations for students. So I think that's a good attitude to have. So I'm going to pause there, but I just want to, that's what I've heard so far. I'll defer to you guys if you have other insights, or maybe I'm not reading it right. Maybe I'm totally reading it differently than what's been said.
I think you're reading, it's right there. It strikes me that, he's one and a half classes in and just really wants to maximize this opportunity for his students so that they can learn as well as possible. I mean,
yeah,
it's tricky. I wonder how much reflection. I mean, I wonder about what if Mike kind of offered up this dilemma to his students? I wonder if
yeah,
they could help in the solution. I don't know. I mean, it's go ahead, Javier.
Yeah, no, I was thinking something similar, which is why I chimed in there. You know, I think my question before was about his approach was because of all of those factors, coming brand new to it from so many different sides. I think now's the perfect time to experiment and kind of throw everything up against the wall and see what sticks. And part of that is letting the kids know that they're in on that process, right? You gain a lot of investment from that, and you're going to be able to have I mean, you really don't know what's going to be successful now, and I think in my high school experience, we were in an alternative school, and our teachers were really open and transparent about that kind of stuff, and it always felt empowering. It felt like we were part of the process and engaged, you know, me in the learning process and most of my peers in a learning process in a way that that I don't think happens very often. So I don't know the setup of the school exactly, but it sounds like they're at least very experimental. And I agree that would be a great way to if you pose this same question to them, what would they say? And what kind of I don't know, input and how much light would be shed on the process and what you could do moving forward just by making that kind of a normal part of your process and evaluation process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually going to say something similar to both Javier and Dan with that students in this space could potentially be your biggest resource. And I know we were talking before about activating the different types of learning, and is this platform a way in which kind of all different learning styles are being met? And so just asking a question to the students, however you would want to phrase it, and then breaking down how the students respond so that could spark ideas of, oh, maybe this could be something I could use online to create a different type of learning that isn't being reinforced through kind of the reading the articles, or just, again, kind of as Javier said, having that form in transparency with the students to have those conversations and kind of see what they're saying, because that's exactly, you know, that's the target audience, and that's who we're trying to get this kind of like data and seeing what is successful from them. But
mm-hmm. You know, it's hard enough to assess formatively and summatively when it's not a blended learning environment, and support your students when they are in front of you. So I empathize with the dilemma. I feel like it is such a new strategy that I don't think it would make Mike's journey any easier, but if at the meta level he can think about how he's going to forward this at his school, you know, this doesn't have to be perfect. It is a learning process. He's gonna become the resident expert on blended learning. Maybe that frees up that this doesn't have to go as well as you have for your expectations, as well as he has for his expectations.
Mm-hmm. You know what? One other thought I had was I think one of the things that's really hard and empathize with Mike in this situation, right, is that it sounds like the way the class works is it's like, do you understand the content, and then you're assessed on the content when you take these tests, right, or you take these quizzes. And that's the evidence if there's an exchange, you know, if the content, right, if the stuff is learned. And I sort of think like, okay, what are other analogies of this? And I kind of think of like gamification on some level, or like, you know, I think of like, what if this was like a multi-user online role-playing game? Well, Mike would know that they're advancing if they're leveling up, right? Or if this was SimCity or something, right? If it was a God sandbox game, he'd know because Mike would know because how well their empire is doing or something. So like, my mind kind of went to that place. Like, what are other evidences that could show progress beyond maybe these tasks that are ephemeral and that are happening? That maybe that could be like almost like project, if you will. Like it kind of builds as the thing goes on, and maybe there's ways to tie in. You know, which of the inputs help advance a build. You know, a chunk of that to be built more. So So yeah, I don't know how useful that is. That's just kind of came up in my mind is like maybe that could be a way to close the loop on the feedback, because to me that's the most struggling part, is that like a lot of this seems ephemeral to me, and like we don't, like some people kicked ass on this test and some people didn't on this test, and it's like I don't it doesn't seem like there's a common thread. So that's what's striking.
And Mac, I want to follow up from that too. I think sometimes our thinking goes in the same directions for whatever reason. I have a friend who works for a company here in Wisconsin called Skyward, and I bring them up because they're doing a lot of what you just described, I think, as assessment tools, creating games and using game theory to engage students in their own assessments. And I would, if I were in Mike's position, I would do something similar. Look at my assessments as that they need to be as equally kind of experimental as as the medium that we're using, right? So that a quiz, and maybe he's doing this and maybe he's not, but this would be the most fun as a student too, is if instead of taking a quiz or some kind of assessment, your presentation of learning was sending a video back. Right, you had, okay, tell me in 5 minutes create this video on your webcam and tell me in 5 minutes what you've learned about this topic, and just to send it out. And then on your side, in terms of how that's measured and what is happening with organizations like Skyward that are trying to track the students' progress, is creating it to be some kind of game, right? So even if it's just like kind of like a checklist or a scavenger hunt, like, all right, who was able to touch base on all of these different methods that we're using, and that's part of your metrics just for success, as opposed to not just the content. Like, they'll get the content if they're touching base on all the different inputs that you have. So and making that, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of prize, or you give a shout out or whatever else, just in that time where you spend together. Like, oh man, Rodney here, he participated in every assessment tool. He took part in every video that we watch, and you track all those along, and just give him a shout out or a high five or whatever it is, or some other kind of bonus that you can think of.
All right, we're coming up on our hour. We're about to toss it back to Mike, and so welcome back to the Hangout, buddy. We'd love to hear from you what your current thinking is based on what you heard from us in our discussion.
Cool. Yeah, Kelsey just posted a question too that I want to address really quick. She says, another question I'm having is going back to the question being rooted in a lack of face time, and if there's an extra day a week that students could come in to get more support. I totally wish that could happen at our school, and just due to scheduling purposes, I've already gone through that gamut with my supervisor, and that was not fun. So, ideally, I would love there to be a 1-to-1 ratio, right? Like 100 or 50% of their time in the online environment and 50% of their time in the face-to-face environment. But sadly, 40 minutes is what I got a week. So, okay. So other things that I heard you guys talking about. I wrote down, I think, like 6 or 7 points. Number one is the lack of data, and that's to maybe Javier's point or somebody's point earlier about how I can maybe, before the blended learning course even begins, is to collect more data on students, so I can kind of front load my course with things that might already be addressing their learning styles or learning needs or learning preferences. 2 is creating a sort of more meta feedback loop, right? Asking students both in person and online about what their experience is like, and not whether they're maybe getting the content, but what their experience with the blended environment is like and how that can be improved. And then to go right along with that is sort of using discussion boards maybe as a tool to engage students in feedback about the course itself, right? And just see how and I can maybe pose a question a week that says, so what was your experience like watching videos for an hour and a half this week, and then taking quizzes about them. and that's, again, getting away from the content, but getting into the more like experience of the blended environment, right? Next thing is using students as a resource. Yeah, I think I'm totally going to go back on Monday and be like, hey, so how's this going for you guys? Like, what's happening here? And leveraging my students as the consumers of what I'm essentially creating for them. And then the last part was about taking an experimental approach to assessment. I think everybody mentioned just blowing up assessment, essentially, and saying, like, okay, how many different kinds of assessment? What are the craziest ways that I could incorporate assessment into here and just see what happens and see how students respond? And I think that's kind of what this course is designed to do as well. Is kind of take an experimental approach to online learning. And then something that made me think about was how to incorporate, right, in blended environments, there's like the badge concept, right? So how to incorporate badges more effectively so like my students can be the mayor of Philadelphia or whatever, you know? And I think that might help give me more data points to make informed decisions about my content and about my learning environment.
Awesome.
Cool.
I hope that you'll check in on the original invite page. I think we'd all love to hear like how this term progresses. Like, it's fascinating. So as we wrap up, I'm going to kick it over to Mac. But I thank you so much, Mike. It's always good to see you. We miss you around here at Eagle Rock, and I appreciate you being willing to share a real live dilemma with us. What you got, Mac?
Awesome. Thanks again, Mike. Thanks so much again for not only being so active virtually, you know, on our different LinkedIn groups and sharing on Twitter, but thanks for being present to share yourself in this way. I'm thankful for, thanks Kelsey for joining us, Javier for joining us. Again, we try to do this once a month. So, if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching in the future, you know, come on, you got some heavy hitters here, giving you some insight. Free consultation, right? It's pretty good stuff. And so, thanks again for watching. And we hope to catch up. We'll probably do it again the third week of October, probably around that time. Look for the invites. And we hope you all, if you've been watching, keep coming back. And if you haven't, tell a fellow alum or hit like on the YouTube video so we know we get some assessment if this thing's working or not. So in the meantime, thank you, Dan Condon, for being awesome and for hosting it. And we'll see you around. Take care, everybody.